All right, let's jump right in. Over the next few minutes, we're going to tackle a problem that, let's be honest, plagues almost every software team out there. Tests that are just a confusing mess. Think of this as a quick coaching session to level up your testing skills, turning that frustration into a crystal clear tool that actually helps you move faster.
Off. Does this look a little too familiar? It's what we call a classic transaction script test, basically a long, rambling series of user actions and checks all tangled together. When a test like this fails, it's not a helpful signal. It's a huge sigh in the beginning of a long, painful debugging session.
And this really gets us to the core of the problem. Seriously, take a second and ask yourself, what is the single specific purpose of this test? If you can't answer that in like 5 seconds, the test has already failed. Even if it's green, it has failed to communicate.
And that is the crucial point we're going to focus on. Getting that green check mark is only half the battle. A test that passes but can't clearly tell you what it's doing is a ticking time bomb in your codebase. It is a maintenance nightmare just waiting to happen.
You've got to think of your tests as a form of documentation. In fact, they're probably the most accurate documentation you have because they can't lie. So when that documentation is confusing, it doesn't just make your life harder today, it makes life a total headache for everyone who has to touch this code a year from now.
So, how do we fix this? Well, it all starts with one really powerful idea that can bring clarity to your entire test suite, separating the abstract rule from the concrete example.
Let's break that down. A rule is the general principle we're trying to enforce. It's the what. An example, on the other hand, is a single, focused, concrete story that shows that rule in action. It's the show me. Most confusing tests happen because we mix these two things up, or even worse, we only show the example and force everyone else to guess what the rule was. This slide just lays it out perfectly. The rule on the left is abstract, right? But the example on the right is totally concrete. It uses real names, real times, it's telling a little story. And notice how the example doesn't just repeat the rule, it makes it real and something you can actually test. Okay, so we've got this rule versus example idea. Now let's see how this builds into a framework we can actually use. We'll use a simple but really powerful template you've probably heard of. Given, when, then. And this isn't just about syntax, it's a structure for clear thinking. Each part here has a very specific job, and we can enforce that by paying attention to the verb tense. Given sets the stage. It's the context that has already happened, so we use past tense. When is the trigger, the one action we're testing right now, so we use present tense. And then is the expected result that will happen, so we use future tense. It's simple, but it works.
Now, what's really cool about this slide is that it basically gives us a cheat sheet for writing perfect scenarios. Given and then should be passive. They just describe a state of the world. But when is active. It's the event. And probably the most important rule of all, only one when per scenario. This is what forces you to be focused.
Okay, theory is great and all, but let's actually see this in action. We're going to take that confusing test from the beginning and completely transform it using the principles we just talked about.
Here it is again, our meandering payroll scenario. It just feels heavy and complicated looking at it, doesn't it? But now we have the tools to figure out exactly why.
So let's diagnose it. First, it has zero focus. We can spot at least 3 when clauses, which means it's trying to test at least 3 different things. Second, it's mixing up the what, the business goal, with the how, the specific UI clicks. And because of that, it's incredibly fragile and super hard to maintain.
So let's refactor just the first part of that original mess. Now, look at this. The title clearly states the rule we're testing. We have one given for context, a single active when that describes the business action, not the clicks, and a clear then that tells us the expected outcome. It's clean, it's focused, and anyone can understand it.
I mean, the difference is just night and day. On the left, you've got this confusing journey. On the right, a clear statement of behavior. Which one would you rather be debugging at 5 p.m. on a Friday? The one on the right isn't just a better test, it's a piece of clear documentation that actually serves the whole team.
And this gets to the absolute heart of why this matters so much. This approach will save you and your team an incredible amount of time and pain. By focusing on the what, the business intent, you protect your tests from changes in the how, all those little implementation details. Now, this powerful approach of separating the what from the how, it's not something I just made up. It's one of the core ideas from a fantastic resource that I highly recommend for anyone who writes tests. The book is called 50 Quick Ideas to Improve Your Tests.
And it's not some dense, theoretical textbook. It's a collection of practical, bite-sized lessons, just like this one, that you can immediately start using in your work.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. This review from a reader absolutely nails it. Simple ideas like describe what, not how, aren't just nice-to-haves. They can literally save you hundreds of hours of rework and frustration. That's a massive return on investment.
So let's wrap this all up by bringing it back to you and the very next test you're about to write.
So please, remember these crucial points. 1. Separate your abstract rule from the concrete example. 2. Use given, when, then with a single when to force yourself to focus. 3. Describe the business intent, the what, not the UI clicks, the how. And finally, always remember your #1 goal is communication.
I'm going to leave you with this question. Don't just think about making the test pass. Think about the person who's going to read this test a year from now, long after everyone has forgotten all the details. How can you write it so that its purpose is so clear, so obvious, that they understand it instantly? That is the mark of a truly great test.